It's quite interesting because as I was thinking about doing this, I was going to talk to you and say, you know, when I said about how students have to be authentically present, and I thought about coming in here after tea, and I thought, man, I'm nervous about this. I don't teach that much with the iPad. I use the iPad extensively in my daily life for all kinds of things. In fact, I don't make use of a laptop anymore because I've learned how to work with it, and I can actually do everything that I need to do as an academic within the University of Auckland on this iPad. But standing up and teaching with it, then that's when you suddenly figure out that you're not that familiar with all of the controls, that a lot of what happens on an iPad application is hidden, right? It's not keyboard strokes, it's all there, but you've got to figure it out. Do I press and hold the screen for 1 second to bring up the main menu? What happens if I want to navigate to the last slide? I know how to do all of that on a physical computer. I've been doing it for like 25 years, which is about how long PowerPoint's been around, I think. But this makes me edgy. So when you see me sitting there going, what's going on? It's because I still actually have a lot to learn about these. But what I want to say to you is I believe these are game changers. I think there's a number of things going on in education at the moment that will finally reshape the way in which things are done. One is massively open online courses. You know, that idea of 20,000 students going in and taking a Harvard course or an MIT X course. I think the other one that's going to make a big change is learning analytics. This is the idea that behind any computer software is a very complex algorithm that can tell us how our students are doing, where their danger signs are, what we need to do for our interventions. That one and that one go together. I think the third one that really goes with those two is these devices. I've been knocking around in e-learning for a very long time, so I remember the days of PDAs, you know, personal digital assistants. Everyone's like, oh my God, they're going to transform what we do, everything will be different. Well, no, they won't, because they've got tiny little screens and they're really annoying, and you know, the older you get, the more difficult it is to read them. And certainly on a more serious note, data input on those screens without a seriously good interface that was designed specifically for it was almost impossible. What we have with these, and so this is, these are termed agile devices. You can see there as well, my Springfield game is ready for me to do something, but that's gone now. Agile devices, why are they called agile? Because we have handheld, right? That's the PDA, the smartphone. After that, we have laptops, which we all know about. They're fantastic in a lot of ways, but they also have kind of limitations, and we got the desktop. Why agile? Because they sit in between the smartphones or the smart devices that are handheld and the laptop space. And there are good things about these, I think, simply from a technical or purely technical point of view. Look at the screen size compared to trying to do something on a phone, right? It just is the case. Yes, you can make Moodle appear on your phone if you really wish to do so. Is it a useful experience? Is it easy to interact with the interface? No, absolutely not. Whereas here on these, you have 8, 9, 10, 11 inches of real estate. Battery life, okay? 10 hours, and it is 10 hours, unless I'm gaming all day on it, in which case, you know, which I obviously don't do at the University of Hong Kong, that would be a shocker. Unless I'm gaming all day on it, you know, if you're doing document editing, if you're just doing the basics like email and web surfing, you actually get the 10 hours of battery life. That means our students can come here in the morning. Actually, they're quite overachieving here. They might need 12 or 15 hours. But, you know, they can do a normal day without having to worry about their battery life. The always-on status of it, okay? So you are somewhere. When you've got a laptop, it's powered down, power it up, wait for it. We all like things to happen instantly now, but on a different note, there might be, okay, moment I need to capture this. These things click and it's on. The built-in media, for example, the ability to kind of photograph and do those things, to audio record in them, they are phenomenal devices that, in my opinion, open up a world of possibilities in teaching and learning. And I guess what I'm going to try to do today for you is give you a kind of smorgasbord of applications. Now, for every application I show, there'll be 10 other versions of the same application. In the sense, when I show you mind mapping, I've chosen one, there'll be 10 other mind mapping tools. But there'll also be other tools that approximate mind mapping, right? So what I'm trying to do, I think, is just maybe open up your eyes a little bit to the possibilities of what's going on with these applications and services. What I would say to you, as I always do if people get sick of it, there are so many applications and services. Figure out what your teaching problem is. Otherwise, you're just going to be in the App Store, surfing around, looking at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of applications. if you know you have an issue with visual representation or your students connecting concepts, perhaps the mind mapping tool is the one to be having at the front of the classroom to have them working with you to generate a mind map showing relations between concepts. Okay? If, let me try and think of another example off the top of my head. If you're doing something very visual like architecture and you want your students going out and photographing and doing audio notes in the field, then we know the applications to use for that and they can log on to Moodle and do it. So without, can you tell I'm putting the moment off of actually having to demonstrate something? Here it goes. Okay, so all I've done here is just bring up Moodle. Now, we know our students are device enabled. There was a library survey last year. They're extremely device enabled. We know that they're also very busy, and we know that they spend a lot of time doing other things, traveling, working, etc. I think what we can do in the first instance very easily, and I'm not necessarily relating this to the ARC model, and all I'm saying is, given that you've done a really good design for a course, it is eminently easy to make that course available in a mobile way. So for us, this didn't happen for a little while at Hong Kong U, but you're seeing the same workshop course here. It's appearing perfectly on my tablet, which is the iPad. It will appear perfectly on the Samsung one. It will appear perfectly on screens of different sizes. And the reason it will do that is a mobile theme is enabled. So you're really just here. I don't think personally, would I be editing my Moodle site on a mobile? Probably not. It works, but it's nowhere near as quick for me to do that as it is using keyboards and a mouse. Would our students would the students benefit from this in terms of where and when and how they're learning? Yeah, absolutely. Moodle as a mobile theme works incredibly well. So there you can see we're on the page. I can zoom it out. Oh, I think that's the same page. I can go back to EPSU 04. So anything that is happening on a desktop computer can happen here. The exception, of course, and this is, you give the overview of technology and then you kind of dig down into it. Flash, for example, it's not going to be happy on an iPad. If you put a lot of Flash animations inside your course, but there are ways around it. There's a browser that will display Flash inside an iPad. So on one level, it's very, very easy to do. And I think the only point I'll make there before moving on to the next application is we want our students to be learning anywhere and at any time. And it's a very straightforward thing to provide them with that kind of access. To myself so that I remember what I wanted to show to you. This I like, but it becomes increasingly powerful, I think, as we think about ourselves being untethered from standing at the front. So this application was either free or cost me $1.29 American. And try and visualize me actually being able to wander around the room here and to be able to be interacting with you. So it's a simulated whiteboard, but it's on my iPad. So I said it's incredibly inexpensive. Obviously you can do things such as basic writing on it, which to some extent, is it useful? Well, I'd go back and say it depends on your teaching approach. If you could set up a group activity and you've asked them each to consider a question and come up with one key idea, being able to go around and visit them and capture that idea so that it's displayed at the end for students to be able to discuss and consult, yes, I would say that was a good thing. We've talked about cloud services. Again, Dropbox is the key one. As far as I don't think I've found an application at the moment that does not connect to Dropbox. So what this gives you the capability to do is, perhaps if you're in the medical field or you're an architect or whatever, you load up Dropbox prior to your class with a number of images that you want to use. So if I go into my Dropbox, there we go, and I created, are you not seeing it? Oh, that's interesting. Okay, sorry, it's not, okay. Folders, Dropbox, I've got one called Whiteboard. You should see the image when it comes up. Yeah, for some reason it's not displaying my activity as I navigate to Dropbox. So I go into Dropbox, it's preloaded with a whole load of images. And again, it comes back to your learning design, but I can imagine for a whole range of disciplines in which visuals and images are important, if you've constructed an appropriate kind of teaching and learning activity in the classroom, this untethers you, allows you to represent any image. I've done a very basic one of constructed. This could just as well be an anatomical figure in which I'm standing here at the front of the class. The students have done pre-activities, and I'm saying to them, well, okay, what do you think that bit is, and why do you think it is that bit? The great thing about this is, once you've done it, I just have to remember where it is. Well, you're not going to see it anyway. I can export the page to a PDF, and I can upload it back to Dropbox. Okay, so without doing anything, and if I've given my students my public address, every Dropbox account has a public folder. If I've given my students the public address, then they can go and download after everything that has happened on that whiteboard. So for me, it's a reasonably simple and effective way to be capturing what is going on in the classroom and to be providing that to students. Its use is as good as the use that you make of it. There are more sophisticated versions of this, which at the moment I don't think we quite have the technology to do it in here. But there are whiteboard applications like this where everybody basically, if they're on the same network, they can be sharing the whiteboard. So you could have 20 students in a class all on the same network. As long as they've got this application, they can be working collaboratively. And so if everything is displayed at the front, your students can all be contributing. So you could make a really highly interactive lecture just on the basis of a $1.29 application. You look like you were going to ask me something.
Is that the Vimeo in the 60 campus?
Vimeo.
The Vimeo technology, the interactive whiteboard?
Oh, yeah, another way to do it. Yeah, it depends. Yes, absolutely. So this is like this would be a, how would I put it? An agile device enabler. It's a whiteboard on here. And for me, one of the great benefits is the extent to which it allows me to move around and be interactive and share. Okay? So there are different affordances, I think, to using something like a whiteboard on a tablet from using Vimeo at the front of the classroom, where you are, my understanding would be, you're essentially tied there with your back to the students as you write on the Vimeo board. Whereas my approach would be much more out there and interactive, and here's the student, here's your iPad, here's the whiteboard, I want you to do this, and everybody sees it immediately. So, quite different. All right. This is a new one for me, and I came across it. If you're thinking about doing the flipped classroom, this is kind of interesting. And again, there's lots of ways to do it. You can come to us and record a lecture. You can go into the new lecture theatres and use Panopto. But this one is, this one for me is interesting. So what it is I have something on my tablet, and it's basically a mini recording studio, right? It's just doing my voice and whatever appears on the screen here. But the interesting thing about this is that you're creating lessons, right? You can create as many lessons as I like. I can then upload them to the EduCreations website. So again, if I'm thinking about student activities, student satisfaction, trying to get them more actively learning, rather than going in and doing that 1 hour lecture all the time, one of the things I can do is sit at home on my iPad, and if I'm clicking record, so now I've started recording. Are you seeing that? Yeah, you can see the recording. Anything I'm doing, okay.
It's only audio?
Yeah. So there is a limitation. If you really think, people are very different about this. Some professors think that seeing the visual, seeing the talking head, really enhances what's going on. Others, no. If I'm not doing something, if I'm not doing a laboratory demonstration, and I don't know the research behind this, I'll have to look it up, but is there really educational value in seeing my head? I'm not sure. Yeah, hearing my voice, the intonation, what I can convey through those kinds of things. Does facial expression add something pedagogically? I don't know. I'm sure somebody's done some interesting research around student engagement and visual versus audio. But yeah, this is audio. If you want it to be video, then no. So it's quite a smart program. Recording is paused while you enter text. Cool. Okay, so I can put text in that way, done. I have to remember to keep recording. I can draw on it as I did before. If I say that I want an image, then see, it's interesting, this comes up on here but not on the other. I can do a camera, I can grab it from my photos, I can go to Dropbox, my favorite, or I can go to the web. So what you're doing essentially is building up a lesson here that's going to be pre-recorded. If I go, I think I did one, Dropbox, let's just do Whiteboard again, Moodle 2 JPEG. And this is quite smart. So, you know, images, one of the things about using images is people who are non-technical don't actually know what the resolution should be, what should my width and height. Here, when you bring an image down, I just do fit height and fit width, and it's now fitting into that space. Now this is probably a good example for us. As people involved in technology, we have to do a lot of these kind of screencasts, right? It's a quick way, the minute and a half, here's how you're going to put a discussion forum up in Moodle. Well, here it's pretty smart. I do a screenshot or a series of screenshots. I bring it down, and I can draw on it and say, okay, you need to click this bit now, this bit, this bit, this bit. I can have multiple screens. Sorry, because I haven't done that. I can have multiple screens so students can work through this. Okay? So really, I think this is free. Sure, it was free. You can look these up as I'm talking. Right?
What's this one called again?
It is called Edu Creations, and I'm sure it's one of the free ones. So if you want to download stuff while I'm talking, all good. If you want to go and use the website, you need to create it. But again, what I say to you is a really simple tool that's inexpensive that you can use anywhere at any time to create something interactive for your students and maybe change the way that you're teaching. Okay, free software. Another one, again, the idea, think back, how interactive can I be with my class? Say that I want to be building up a conceptual understanding of something with them. I've had this as a real example with teachers say, well, they get it point by point by point. What they're not grasping is what is the relationship between these different points that I'm trying to get across. This one is called MindJet. It's basically a mind management system. So I've opened it up and I click this little plus icon at the top there, and I'll just give it a name. Okay. So there we have the kind of, whatever you want to call it, the core concept in the middle. The way in which I kind of probably get excited about this is if I had students trying to contribute to building up an understanding based on this core concept. Now, a lot of you are subject experts, so you'll be able to perhaps relate this back to what you do and think about whether there's use in going through those kinds of steps with students. But you see this, if I tap and hold, is it coming up? Yeah. And drag, then I get another topic. I can type in there, put whatever I want. I can add an icon, put a smiley face, because so far we've had no real technology issues. No. And so it's a very simple functionality, but again I think quite powerful depending on your teaching and learning approach. So I can go through and build up really a very complex mind map with topics, subtopics. I could do that myself at the front of the class through giving an interactive lecture. So when I said to you earlier, I'm not down on the lecture per se. If I'm standing at the front of a lecture theatre, but I've got a mind map, and at every time of 10 to 12 minutes through my 1 hour lecture, I get the students to give me a response that is building up this mind map over time, then I'm doing something other than a pure transmission style of teaching. Okay? Again, ideally I'd be wandering around with it, but teaching situations differ. Classes of 100, 200, not possible. But as with the other applications, I can download from Dropbox, I can save this map, and I can upload it to my public Dropbox. I think with all of these things, time is a consideration. Nobody's looking for answers that are going to take them weeks to implement and weeks to learn the kind of technologies. The great thing about a lot of the applications that are coming out these days for the tablet devices is they are phenomenally straightforward to learn to use. Literally maybe a 10 or 15 minute learning curve. Okay? So this is just another way for you to be interactive with your students. And again, kind of whatever your discipline is, kind of think about what is it I want to do, because I guarantee you there is an application out there that will allow you to do it. All right, let me just go back to education. I think I'm showing you this one in terms of what are the possibilities. Now, iTunes U, we looked into this at Hong Kong U. Really, the institution needs to sign up as an institution. It has to be an enterprise level agreement, with the exception that an individual instructor can have one class with, I think, a maximum of 40. So I don't think I'm particularly putting this out there as here's what you can do with your teaching if your institution hasn't made an institutional commitment. But I think what there is now, and again this will come down to your philosophy of teaching, how comfortable you are with doing it, there are a host, just as there are with massively open online courses, a host of very high quality courses, openly accessible and free inside of iTunes U. And iTunes U, from its early days when it was essentially delivering content, has become a learning management system. If we thought this through very carefully, we might perhaps be a bit worried about what is happening in the future as iTunes U own all of this content. Right? Everything that goes in iTunes U belongs to Apple. Imagine repurposing all of this content around. Anyway, let's not go there. So there's some very, very high quality resources, and certainly some teachers are willing to trade off what I would call, I suppose, the social media ethos of it's fine for me to make use of the Open University's 3 videos on Buddhism in India, because basically I'm not going to get to India and make very good videos on it. But what I have is some excellent videos about Hinduism actually it'll be India again, Buddhism somewhere else predominantly, in India. Okay, so that ethos, and so as long as you've got a kind of degree of comfortableness with I'm willing to use some resources, because actually my value is not in my resources or my content knowledge, right? That stuff is out there. I suppose I find it semi-funny now when teachers are really precious about content, because there is so much of it, of a very high quality, from the world's best minds, openly available. I don't think we should be thinking of our value in terms of the content that we own. Our value has to be somewhere else. And here it is. So you can get an info. I'll just show you why I think it's become a learning management system. There's an overview, something about the instructor, into the outline, but this is the one that interests me, I guess. So materials, obviously you can work through this as a course week by week, but when we go in, we'll begin to say that these courses, the Open University of course is going to be one of the best examples in iTunes U, but it's a very media-rich course that students go into, listen to audio, watch video. But the interesting things that are coming up, I think, or not coming up, they're here, course notes, audio, video notes, and book notes. So this is why it's become more of a learning management system, and in fact, it's taken a step beyond the learning management system, because our learning management systems, in a way, are locked down, and communication is relatively difficult, in my opinion. Here, iTunes U has been designed to facilitate communication. If I'm a student and I've taken a set of notes and I want to compare those notes with my fellow students, it's very straightforward inside iTunes U to do that. Love the idea of the portability of this, and the fact that it's Apple, so it's obviously designed to work fantastically inside the iPad, but it can work just as well. Sorry, Nikki, on the tablet devices for iTunes U, is there an app on the Google? Yeah, on Chrome or something. Is there not as good? No. Okay. Yeah, I have a feeling in the back of my mind that it's less straightforward on the other tablet devices. But of course you get iTunes on PC and Mac, so you can use it on both. Alright, so there we go. What's the next one I want to do? I think, yeah, as I move through, I've perhaps gone from sort of interactivity now more towards students accessing content on these devices and the ways in which they can do that, and what are the affordances of particular applications. Inkling books, oh man, electronic books have been around in some format for a very long time, and it was probably the 90s, I think, the early 90s, there was a lot of hype about how they were going to revolutionize the publishing industry, and they never did. But there's another wave going on now of electronic textbook publishing. And I think I'd say to you, in exactly the same way, I guess not in exactly the same way, in a way that's similar to iTunes U, the affordances or the things that one can do in virtue of being in these kind of electronic book environments make them, to my mind, a much better teaching and learning option than the old hard copy physical books. The reason I say that is, like for Inkling books, for example, this is not a great example. It's an electronic textbook. They do an awful lot in the medical field, luckily. So if you go onto the inkling.com, I think you'll see a lot of the kind of major medical books are there. They incorporate high definition video, they incorporate audio, they incorporate really rich visuals. They provide for, now I'm not sure how much of a claim I would make for the educational value of this interactive exercises that tend still to be multiple choice. Testing basic levels of understanding, yeah, all good, but probably not much beyond that. They also provide for putting your own notes in there. Let me see what I can do. Come in. Okay, so this, I mean, these points sound really minor, but I do all my reading on an iPad now. And when I look here, I can put notes on any page. These notes can be searchable. I can bookmark. The time saving that goes on as a result, I'll show you my reference manager later, that everything I do is electronic and easily searchable, and all of my notes are in one place. And more than that, everything I do is synced across every computer that I have. I should do a time and motion study or something. I'm supposed to be saving hours per week. But if you're somebody who has one of these and an office computer and a home computer, everything I'm showing you here automatically syncs with every device you've got. And that's just a phenomenal saving. It's much more efficient. And I think relatively easy to make the case in things like iTunes U and Inkling books that there's added educational value in terms of what they can do. Let me just do, I'll do one. I had a few, but I'm going to do the one. This is the go-to application for me. I use it every single day. Again, in the end, if we think about this and we look at it and say, well, okay, this is, in the end, it's a note taker, right? It's an electronic note taker. Okay, so I'm just going to open one up for you, hopefully. There we go. I can take any kinds of notes in here, and again, it's synced across every one of my devices. Plus, I can share these notes via email and a number of other ways with anybody with whom I choose to send them. But if I made just a really small teaching and learning step and said, well, let's go back to the database activity that we were talking about earlier, and you take out a camera and you've got to download it and various devices that are going on. This does everything, right? So I could, if I wanted to, let's have a look. I'm going to finish with this point. So, all right, it's not going to, let's just see if it'll bring it up. It's come out, thank you. Just interested to see whether it'll do it. No, it's not too happy. Oh, there we go. All right, so as a student, I can go around. I've got to go out on an experiential learning project. That one application will capture video, photographs, audio, notes. It'll stop.
What's the name?
It's called Evernote. Right, I think like $5 Hong Kong or something. In and of itself, yeah, okay, we know these functions, but if you design that kind of really rich and engaging teaching and learning activity, most of your students do have smart devices. You can get them capturing that whole experiential learning project. Journalism and media sense study, they actually do this. They have students out in the field in real time. They make them tweet, I want to know what you're doing, and they give them instant feedback. The same capabilities exist through really inexpensive applications on these tablet devices. And Evernote is definitely one that works across the various operating systems. I need to stop, but I would encourage you to just explore and be creative. If you want to get any of those apps, the websites are there for you to look at them in the PowerPoint. All right, thank you very much.